Welcome, dear brothers and sisters, to the studio of the Sabbath School Department of the General Conference. Together with our dear sister Raquel Orsi, we're going to present to you our new Sabbath School lesson. And our new Sabbath School lesson is about condemned to death but saved. We continue with a series of lessons related to our heroes of faith, and we want to learn from their example. But before we go into our studies, we would like to invite the presence of God with our prayer. And we wish to do a silent prayer. Amen. Now, as usual, we wish to see the structure of the lesson, condemned to death but saved. We're going to study about one of the very, very important patriarchs in the Old Testament, which is Moses. And we're going to see also several issues related to it. The family, the education of the family, the sacrifice which parents need to make in order to educate their children in a proper way. There are many issues involved in this lesson and depend on the teachers which kind of or which subject they want to underline. This will be actually the central point of our study. Considering the undertitle, we wish to see that the first undertitle speaks about suspicious and deadly measures. It is introduction about the topic, and we're going to see how difficult times came in Egypt for the people of God, for the Israelites. And we know that in the end of time, in a similar way, the people of God, we will have difficult time. And a very similar way as in the time of the Egyptians, the era of the Egyptians, also the world, which is the symbol of Egypt, will take over very much because of influence. And this Pharaoh, symbol of the devil, will try to destroy all children of God in end of time. So we have a lot of parallels if we want to use the symbolic expressions of what Egypt is and what is the river and what is Moses and all these things, but we can also concentrate on the literal expression of the lesson depending on the level of students and visitors we have in our churches. So after the introduction, we're going to see in the lesson related to the historical events, how the Pharaoh react and how the Israelites react. Then we come to the second point of the lesson, born in a very difficult time. And we're going to see also how the situation worse and worse, and what kind of decision the parents of Moses have to take in this difficult time, and why. And next undertitle is Faith and Action, which is very important to understand how in difficult time our faith will be revealed. The next undertitle is Tested but not Abandoned, and these are important. It is important portion of the lesson, and the last portion is under the untitled Leading Toward Freedom. How this goes, and the lesson actually can serve as a pattern also of a liberation from a difficult time, difficult trials and temptations. That first comes the difficult situation and the trial and the temptation. Second comes our position toward these difficulties. What kind of position we're going to take, what kind of decision we're going to take, and depending on that, which position or which attitude we're going to assume, then depends also the result out of it, or how God can deliver us from it. And this pattern can be served or can be explained and and it's going to be for a great benefits for all of us. But now let's go to the details of the lesson. We have in the picture in the background the river Nile, and it's flourishes time when everything is green around, and this, especially in this portion of the river. And sometimes it's very deserted, depending on the season and the time. But let's go with Raquel to the the first question, and this is actually the introduction to the historical situation in which Moses was born. What suspicion arose in the mind of the new Egyptian Pharaoh, and when he saw how the Israelites were growing in numbers? And we know that in the end of time will be very similar the situation. We finished the previous Sabbath school lesson speaking about the mark of the beast and all these persecutions, and we know that if the people of God grows in number the same way as the Hebrews were doing, then what is going to happen?
We need to consider the historical context so that we can have a general overview and a better understanding about the subject that we are dealing with in this lesson. We see here a historical change in the dynasty of the Egyptian pharaohs. No more the Ixos. The Ixos were from the Semitic family, and they were invaders from the Egypt civilization. And during this time is when Joseph also became the prime minister. Now a change of dynasty take place, and the way how the Bible text expresses is that this new king over Egypt which knew not Joseph. So a change of dynasty that now is characterized for the Egyptian line of kings means that also a hostility toward the friends of the former dynasty will be expressed very strongly. And that was exactly the Israelite population inside of the territory of Egypt, especially because they were favored during the time of the former dynasty when Joseph was the prime minister. Now the thing changed completely, exactly to the opposite. And all of a sudden, from favorite human group to a hated human group. And in this situation, we see the first measure that the Pharaoh took in order to control this growing population inside of the territory of Egypt, and not only growing in number, but also in skills, in power, and influence. So he realized that logistically he need to do something to stop this improvement of this specific ethnic group inside of the society, and reduce the influence, and also try to reduce the possibilities of importance and relevance inside of the country. And because he realized danger, he decided to take specific measures to control this human group.
Thank you very much. The Pharaoh actually was afraid, and if we read the whole Bible text, it says, what will happen if the kingdom is at war, and this nation becomes so powerful, and if they turn against us, then what shall we do? So we see that there are several points we need to pay attention on it. One of them is that the Israelites does not give up their identity. They continue being Israelites, although we know that they give up, or many of them give up with their religious activities, and they become to be very much influenced by the Egyptians, but here the expression of the Pharaoh is that the Israelites have their own national identity. They were keeping in a separate place. They were living in a specific geographical area. They were keeping a certain profession, especially the building. They were the builders and very skillful workers. And they have their own language. They have their own manners and the way of dressing and a way of performing their traditions. And this is what scares the Pharaoh. And I think that is what is going to scare also the world in the end of time, before the persecution takes place, because they will be the people of God who keep their identity. It's very important for us to understand how important it is to be this peculiar people, this special people of God, which sometimes will really raise up envy and anger to the enemies of God, but also will move the hand of God to save us. Continuing with the Sabbath school lessons, we go to question number 2. What terrible decree did the Pharaoh issue when other measures failed to accomplish its goal to weaken the Hebrew people? He tried to make them busy and give them more work, but this did not really destroy them. It actually make them even stronger.
The first measure was exactly that, to overwhelm them with very, very hard work. And this first measure don't achieve the goal that the Pharaoh have in mind. So population increase are very strong, and he realized this measure is not working. So now a second measure is applied, and have to do with the elimination of the babies. Baby boys that are born needed to be executed immediately. And in order to secure this measure, he ordered specifically the midwives of the Hebrews, because they are supposed to be present when a child is born, and they have then the opportunity to realize or to put in practice this criminal act. So the destruction of the baby boys mean that in this generation control of the population will take place, and no second generation will be secure for this nation. So it's a systematical extermination of the nation. That was the main purpose. And we see something very interesting. These two specific midwives that we even find here with names, they didn't follow this instruction. They fear the Lord, and they realize that is not possible. They are not going to do that. And we see here that even when the most powerful nation in the world at that time, in the well-known world at that time, tried to exterminate the people of God by hard work, like by the first measure, now by the second measure, reduction of the population, God intervened in a wonderful way so that this didn't happen.
Thank you very much. It's interesting, the strategy which the Pharaoh used as number 1, and that was to find alliances, or to make alliances with certain people inside of the people of God. He wants to have his own agents that destroy or serve to his purpose inside of the Hebrew nation. And I think that will be also one of the intents in the end of time, to introduce inside of the church, inside of the people of God, wrong doctrines, unconverted people, people who serve the purpose of the world, the purpose of Pharaoh, and directly or indirectly, secretly actually, slowly they destroy the new generation. And I think this is very interesting example, if it's taken as a symbolic or spiritual way, to understand how the devil actually will plan, and it's planning, and it is intending to put the world inside the church today, so in this way he can eliminate the new generation by putting false doctrine and unconverted people. Midwives, it's very important office, and this in this time, this was the women's that were helping by giving birth. Actually, we don't give birth in Israelites today, but we do missionary work. And if the missionary work is improperly done, if we do not explain to the new coming members the entire truth, if we pervert the truth, or we give a wrong message to the new coming members, then that is the purpose of the Pharaoh, actually to destroy the Israelites nation. But let's see, the midwife didn't, they fear God and they didn't obey the Pharaoh. That's obviously, then the Pharaoh was furious, and we come to question number 3. At last, what cruel order was issued to reduce the people's number?
It's interesting that for all the 3 measures, different groups of people were especially considered. By the first measure were the supervisors that needed to treat in a very hard way the Israelites and overburden them with work in such a way that they will be weak and they will die. The second measure has to do with the midwives inside of their own people, and this also was without success. Now, the third measure was applied and was allowed to be executed by anyone among the Egyptian people. And this is very interesting. This death sentence for all the baby boys was applied to all the Hebrew boys, and this sentence was allowed to be executed by any person in the nation. So that was a general law for destruction.
Thank you. It's interesting. At the end of time, perhaps not similar law will be issued. We know it will be a Sunday law. But the final idea is to stop the missionary work. And if we actually follow up the news and in the religious world, we're going to see that right now it's a very strong intention to destroy or to eliminate proselytism or work between Christian churches. And there are many big Protestant churches like the Baptist Church. They officially apologize the Catholic Church for doing proselytism. And it is exactly the same thing. If it is not permitted to proselytize, it means it's not permitted to gain new members. You cannot do missionary work. You cannot convert other people to the true religion. You need to leave the people there where they are, and you just do charity work or whatever kind of social work you have to do. And this kind of intent is exactly the same as the Pharaoh actually did in his time, to try to make impotent, to eliminate the newly born baby boys. And it's incredible how in the prophetical and modern time we see a very similar intent toward the the Christian churches. But let's see now the question number 4. Who was born in this very terrible time? And what it says about this baby. Because there were many babies that have been born since Israelites were so big in number. But that baby was something special.
Yeah, in this terrible time, the third child of a special couple from the tribe of Levi was born, and was a baby boy also. So the sentence was there and needed to be applied. Humanly thinking, for the mother and father was impossible to do that. So they tried to hide the baby as long as possible. And we see that all the family were involved in this process of hiding this beautiful child. The Hebrew description that is translated to our language with godly or beautiful or fair child have 3 different perspectives in the same concept. Have to do with beautiful external appearance, but also to do with a very quickly way of thinking, intelligence, and development. So when the parents, Jochebed and Amram, observe his son, they have already one daughter and another son, but they consider something important when this son was born, because the time came near that the prophecy given to Abraham that they will go out of Egypt was near to be fulfilled. And this is very, very important to understand, because God said to Abraham in a prophecy that his descendants will go to Egypt and they will dwell there for a specific period of time. And this period of time was near to be extincted. So they realized something will happen and the Lord will intervene in a special way. And according to the note also, we know that these convictions were real by this family.
Thank you very much. It's interesting that Moses was born as a child in a difficult time. And we need to understand that also leadership is very important in the end of time. By the persecution, by the endurance during the Sunday law. This will be a very peculiar people. And the child that was supposed to guide the people was born in that difficult time. And we need to understand this. It's very important. It means that even if we are born in a very difficult time, or better say, more difficult time we have, as a child, as a children, bigger is the possibility that God will use us later, because then we learn a lot of skills and we learn also to trust God in a special way. And Moses was not different than that. But let's see what happened in the faith and action. Now let's see how the parents, having faith, seeing that this child is special, it's more intelligent than any other child. It's more, his character is so wonderful. It's not a stubborn child that cries and make foolish things. It's surely something that make them very convinced that it's a different child. Now they understand this child, it's a kind of gift of God. And now how their faith is revealed. It's question number 5. In what serious situation did the parents find themselves, despite the risk of that they were in, how they resolve this problem, thus the problem in the hide their son.
Also, both of them, mother and father, have a very deep conviction what is right. They also understood properly what is the most important and to whom they need to be loyal first. So they didn't fear the king's command because they follow the kings of kings command, and that was God. So first of all, they keep the life of the child, but that was only possible until a certain period of time. The Bible text tells us that the baby boy, was 3 months old, and the parents realized it's no more possible to keep them so that the people don't notice that he's there. So even if the situation was extreme, they decided to give a chance to this baby. And then a special preparation was done. Father and mother, in harmony with the other 2 children, prayed to the Lord and decided to surrender this child to God and not to commit any sin in front of God. And despite the risk, we know that they receive a clear plan from God and they perform it, and we will see in the next question the development of the narration.
Thank you very much. It's actually a very painful situation, because having this child and knowing that it's have to die because the Pharaoh's command is to kill all the children, actually longer they have the child, more painful is to see his death. And sooner they deliver the child to death, less will be the pain. But in this case, this family decide in faith to keep the child as long as it is possible, trusting that God will find a solution. And that's where faith is coming in appearance. Faith is not just a theory, it is a moving principle. And even if it is life is in question, the faith need to overcome this fear of death. And we see that, and we have seen that in the centennial. We have seen that through the the previous lessons, how persecution takes place also in the history of the Seventh-day Adventist church when faithfulness comes in question. But how the narration go further, and what happened now in question number 6 with the faith of the parents, with tears and deep heritage, what did the parents decide to do?
So it was clear that was impossible to keep the child at home. So they prepare a strategy, a plan. And this is really important to understand, because in extreme situations, they didn't give up. They believe strongly that God can find a way to deliver the child. So according to the biblical report, we know that a little ark was prepared, basket, and was put in the river, but not in any place in the river, but the plan was very well prepared. So was placed near to the place where the princess usually went to take a bath. So the idea was, if the will of God is to keep alive this child, He can work in such a way that this princess notice this baby boy and save him. And the mother was too sad to remain there, so the older sister, Miriam, remained and watched from far the development of the events that we will see in the next questions.
Thank you very much. How we can understand this, or how can we apply this action of faith in our spiritual life today? I think that each one of us face difficulties and troubles, and sometimes it's impossible to fulfill things we want to fulfill. In this case, by leaving the baby over the water, actually the parents dedicate the child and left that child in the hands of God, in the hand of the destiny. And many times we need to leave really that the Spirit of God guides our lives. Even if we don't see furthermore, we don't see the future, we are not sure if that will reflect in blessings or that things will be as we want that to be, but we're trusting God, and faith means really give everything in the hand of God. And may the Lord help us to have this conviction which also the parents of Moses have, especially his mother. But at the same time, as you mentioned, faith is not a passive thing. So, okay, you drop the baby in the water and you forget about this. No, his elderly sister, she will follow up as long as possible. And here is again the human collaboration with the miracle that God can do. And we see that because she was so insisting in her action of faith, she was also a very useful instrument, and we're going to see what happened. And question number 7, while there seems to be no hope for the baby, how did the Lord work?
Humanly was no salvation for this baby. But if God is in charge of something, we know that the best will happen. And the parents and also the brother and sister of this baby boy, 3 months old, were convinced of it. And this is what makes a difference. They were not able to change the situation. They were slaves. They were nobody. They didn't have rights, not even opinion and power of decision. But even if human beings take this from them, they didn't accept that. So in front of God, they keep their dignity. They keep their faith. And this faith that works by love become active and successful. And this is very important in our personal life. We can be like Noah or Job in extreme situations that no way out can be seen, exactly now as in the case of this baby boy. But they try the best that was possible according to their circumstances and the situation. And this is what is important. We need to do our part. The Lord will be the one doing what is not possible for us. So now the baby is inside of this basket, is in a specific part of the river, hoping that the princess will notice this special basket with a special gift from God that for Jochebed was this baby boy. And for sure she went home and was praying for her son. The older sister was looking for that. And then when human possibilities finish, the opportunity of God began. And we see that the Lord lead everything in such a way that exactly the best happened at this moment. So the princess noticed this basket. The basket was brought to her. She opened it and realized immediately the tragedy that was present in front of her. She knew about the command of the king. So she knew that this is a Hebrew boy and was condemned to death. She decided in this moment, no, he will live. And he will live because God decided so, and because the parents believe that this will happen. And this is extremely important. But we see the human cooperation with divine intervention. When the sister realized that the plan was working, that everything happened as they imagined to be, then she appeared in front of the princess. And that was not an easy thing, because she was a slave. And she needed to control herself very much, because for sure she was very excited and have the tendency to say, oh, this is my brother, thank you, you are going to help him. No, she needed to control herself. She needed to act as nothing special happened, and even introduce her mother to be the one taking care of her own child. And the Lord gave wisdom to Miriam in this specific time, because the princess didn't notice nothing special. And she realized this is the best option, because she was not able to take care of a baby 3 months old. So it's important. Jochebed give her son to God, and God give her son back to her. And this is the most important thing. Also in family issues, when we give to God what he has given to us, in this specific context, our children, the Lord will take care of them and will give us wisdom, opportunity, and power to manage the things according to the best way, as we find here also.
Thank you. Very interesting. Actually, Moses could be saved by the princess, but not being educated by his own mother. And this very special occasion became like a fruit from the faith and actions of his Moses' sister, Miriam. And how this miracle happened is that Miriam was following the baby and during the river, observing everything, and she was there in the right time at the right place. And that's very important. If you want that God works miracles with you, you must be in the right time at the right place. If Miriam's will stay home and just cry, it will not take place. But the faith works action. The faith, the living faith, it is push the believer into action and put him in the right time, in the right place. And that's happened in this case with Miriam. And we see what tremendous and important consequence takes place because of her. And now we have the last questions. To what mission did the Lord call the one who have been rescued? And I think we all have been rescued from the world, from Egypt or from Babylon. We have come out of Egypt and we're on the way to Canaan, the wonderful journey which we have. And Moses have a mission, and I think each one of us have a mission. What was the mission of Moses?
When Jochebed received her son back, she was sure that a special mission is expecting this son of her. That was a special intervention from God. When she received back her son, she knew that in a specific time, the princess will ask again for him. So according to the biblical report and the spirit of prophecy, we know that this happened when Moses was around 12 years old. The years when, like the Hebrew and Egyptian also believe that a boy began to be a young man, no more a child. So she had only a specific period of time. And we know, according to the testimonies also, that mother and father focus so much in Moses to give him the message, to form a character that will endure the temptations, the trials, the influence that after he needed to confront it in Pharaoh's palace. And we know that they achieved success. We know that Moses was called and the mother needed the second time give back her son. And by this time, she knew that the Lord will take care of him, as he had done the first time. And that was exactly like that. The love and the faith in God was so deep planted in the heart of Moses that even in the extremely worst and evil and wicked atmosphere where he was growing up, remained alive. The truth. He was in the outward appearance as an Egyptian, educated, dressed, speaking, behaving like an Egyptian. In his heart, he was a Hebrew. And he demonstrated that also in the most extremely moments of his life. And he decided to abandon everything and be with his people. And this is a very impressive history that we find in the Bible that have different aspects of lessons that we need to consider. One is the instruction that he received. Second, the experience of the parents that was transferred to them. Third, his personal decision toward the people of God, to become also a slave, to become also a fugitive, and to put aside everything, but never God and the truth.
And here we see, as you just mentioned, Moses was exposed and the most terrible influence of the world, of the Egyptian culture and education. But despite of this, he was well prepared for its service and for its mission. And I think this is a duty for our parents, for our mothers. Even if our children are studying in the schools of the world, they maybe are in the universities, maybe they will graduate as a doctors and whatever specialities they will have. This will not take them away from their missions if the parents are taking time to spend with their children, to worship with their children, to pray with their children, to tell them the stories of Jesus, to tell them every single day or every single night what God have done for his people. And this little drop that drops every single day is actually what's prepare a man or a woman to be a special instrument in the hand of God. That's why, dear brothers and sisters, let's not be discouraged because we live in Egypt. Maybe we'll live under the terrible influence of the world. Maybe you're in a difficulties because the world is attacking and taking the attention of your children out of the faith. Don't give up. Don't give up. Follow the same path as Jochebed, the mother of Moses, did. Act by faith. Follow the river and never give up until your child become a missionary in the hands of God. May the Lord bless you. Dear brothers and sisters, be in good courage and be prepared for that special mission which God have given to you, because all of us were taken out of the river of the world, and were put in the path of God in the way to Canaan, to the new promised land. May God bless you, and see you next week. Amen.